Welcome back to the Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. We are in section 60 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, in the general section of brachos, which we've been busy with for the last significant amount of time. We are almost at the end, and we've learned about special brachos that are made on special sites, on fruit trees blossoming, shooting stars, thunder, lightning, rainbows, oceans, the equinox, places of miracles, Torah giants, exceptionally intelligent people, kings. And today we come up to the laws of the cemetery. If a person, if somebody goes to the cemetery, he says over here, if you see the graves of Jewish people, some say even if you see it but you don't go in, others say only if you go in. I think the standard practice is when entering a cemetery, then there's a bracha that is to be made. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam, asher yatzil eschem badin, v'zad eschem badin, v'chilke eschem badin, v'asen ha'achyu eschem. Blessed are you, Hashem, King of the universe, who has formed you in judgment. So when you go to the cemetery, when you go to West Park, there is a special bracha to be made. You will find it in the Siddur, or they probably have it printed somewhere in West Park as well. So there's a special bracha to be made on that. How Hashem gives life, and will in the future will return life when Mashiach comes. If a person sees the graves of pagans or a cemetery of idolaters, then the verse would be, your mother will be deeply ashamed. She that gave birth to you will be disgraced. Behold, the ultimate end of nations will be a desert, a dry land, and a wilderness. Sounds pretty hectic, but it was instituted by the sages and it has its place. Some say that if the grave has a cross on it, since crosses are connected to what's considered somewhat idolatrous, at least for Jews, to believe that there's a power other than God. Some say that one shouldn't make a bracha in such a place, just in case it looks like one is acknowledging the cross. Others, I think, maybe would argue that nowadays a cross is often not a religious symbol at all, it's more of a cultural symbol. But there is a bracha that is to be made for that as well, although I haven't seen it being practiced, although that's not a proof, but just sharing my experience. That's as far as a cemetery. Now that said, this bracha is only made not just for cemetery, but for everything we've been discussing in this chapter. Well, not everything, not thunder and lightning, but as far as special places or unique places, one only makes the bracha if he hasn't been there within the last 30 days.
What's that onion?
So if 30 days have passed, excluding the day you were in the cemetery, then you will make the bracha once again. So practically, if a person goes to West Park Cemetery for an unveiling or funeral or whatever it is, and then returns 2-3 weeks later, then they will not make the bracha again, since they already made the bracha within the last 30 days. Say we go with the king, but if you see different individuals who hold the same high public office as those whom you have previously seen, for example, another king or other graves, then you would make the bracha. So if you're returning to the same place, or to see the same person within 30 days, you will not repeat the bracha. But if it is a new place or new person, you would repeat the bracha. This halacha is if you see something that's really exceptional. So the first thing he says, it's not freely translated. It definitely doesn't say African in the Hebrew. It says Haraya Kushi, the Geichar. So if you see a Kushi or a Geichar, he translates as an African or an Indian. That is a person of deep red skin color. Or an albino, that is a person with very pale skin. Or a malformed individual, that is to say a person who is abnormally tall and slender, somebody in the Guinness World Record Center maybe, or a dwarf, or a Hydrikana, that is a person whose skin is covered with wart-like scales, or a person with tangled hair, whose entire hair clings together, or an elephant, or an ape. Then there's a bracha that the one says, blessed be Hashem, our God, King of the world, who makes creatures different. You say this bracha only the first time you see it, because that's when it's most strange. This obviously needs to be understood, this halacha. Let's break it down a little bit. So the first thing is he says a kushi. What exactly is a kushi? So some thought that the idea of all these is that a person sees something that is strikingly strange. They've never seen such a sight in their life. And they realize that this too comes from Hashem. So some say, based on that a kushi over here is talking about a person that is born with black skin, born to both parents having white skin. And perhaps the same would be in the reverse. If a person is seeing something that is very exceptional, like I remember going to the Guinness Center of Guinness World Records, the Twin Towers, where they actually had people there that had the records themselves. If a person sees something that is exceptionally different, then one also makes a bracha and thanks Hashem for it. Obviously, this isn't about better or worse, but it's acknowledging even those things which seem strikingly different from what one is used to make a bracha for that. And based on that, I would say that if there was, according to the commentaries that says it's not specifically a person with black skin born to a person with white skin, the same would probably be in the reverse. If you had a community of Jews with dark skin, and they had never seen before a person with white skin and suddenly encountered him, they would probably also make the bracha. They'd say, what is this strange sight? We've never seen such a thing before. Wow, a human being whose skin color is different. So that's the idea. So we're not making any comparisons, and the intention is not to be derogative, but the idea is if a person sees something that they've never seen before that's strikingly unusual, then that too is a reason to bless Hashem and realize that everything that exists in this world is made by Hashem. And those are all the different examples that he gives. He mentioned an elephant, so I'm probably talking about a wild elephant back in the day. Suddenly somebody came across an elephant in the wild. This would be a complete wondrous sight. Obviously, if you're going back to the game reserve, then there's nothing strikingly strange about that, and you wouldn't make the bracha. Okay, perhaps we'll have to conclude tomorrow and maybe even begin the final section. You're welcome to WhatsApp me your questions because of brevity